in the Perik Yud, Pasuk Yud Beis. It says, "V'ata Yisrael ma Hashem Elokecha shoyel mi'imoch ki im liyiro es Hashem Elokecha leleches b'chol derocha v'lahavo yisoi v'lahavos es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levov v'chol nafshecha." So we have this famous pasuk that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to go b'chol derocha, leleches b'chol derocha. And the Parshas Kisavoi also is another pasuk. Ki aretz shata bo shama nishbaloch ki sishma es misha Hashem lekev alachta b'derachov. So you see, there's two psukim. I heard from Rav Tisho. He asked the kasha zechatzak levracha. Like everyone asked, like where's the mitzvah say, right, of midas in the Torah? Where's the mitzvah say? So valachta b'derachov. This is the mitzvah say. If you look in the Rambam over here in Hilchos Deus, the Rambam brings that what's the derech of the famous Rambam when it comes to midos is derech habeinini, and the Rambam doesn't just say that just derech beinini. He likes to mitzuvin or no leleches b'derachim elu habeinim v'hem haderachim hatoivim v'ayisharm shenemar v'alachta b'derachov. And then he says even starker, and he says. We know it's Mahu Racham, we have to be Racham, Mahu Chanun, we have to be Chanun. He says, and that is the Derech, Zu Derech Hashem. We're not going to go into the lumdus of that. The Havonas must make us exactly that the Derech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Derech Beinani. How do you tell that Zu? Okay, but that's what you see in the Rambam, that's the Derech Hashem. And he goes, he invited us, learned us up from Avram Avinu, which is a whole thing in itself. Why does the Rambam have to bring in, they learn from Avram Avinu, what's a mitzvah say in the Torah, after Matan Torah, the Rambam is going back to Avram Avinu, that's where it started. But that's where the Makar is. And he doesn't go away from that it's a new din after Matan Torah, it's still the din of Avram Avinu. And if you look in the Rambam, in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, so this is where he tells it avek as a mitzvah, it's mitzvah sheni. Mitzvah shminis yishatzivonu lahad moizbo yisala. We should be medama ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the mitzvah that say v'alachta b'derachov? We have to have a demus. What that means, tzelem alekim of a person should have the demus as much as you can to HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shenemar v'alachta b'derachov. And then he brings down the pasuk I mentioned also in that's in Kisavoy, and then he brings again the pasuk in Eikev, the leches b'chol derachov. So you see, the Rambam brings both psukim. Okay, but does the mitzvah say of to be medama yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's the mitzvah. And at the end of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and that mitzvah, just want to be medayik stark, because I think we'll see Baruch Hashem. It's meduyik in the Rambam, and that we'll see in a second, that she'enyanu lahadmois bepeulois hatayvos v'hamidas hachashuvos. Rambam says there's two inyanim here. That you have to have peulois hatayvos. That's part of being medamis of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The chanun, the rachum is peulois, and but midas ma'machshavos hachashuvos. I'm sorry. She toyer by him hakel yisal tzara moshel yisal alkol ilui rab. So you see, the l'chayra, there's two things. I want to make that dik in the Rambam. There's pu'ulais and there's midas hachashuvais. If you look in just like Blazer in Sefer Koich Or, he grada shtels on this. He says he brings the Gemara, right? The Gemara in Soiten Daf Yudalid says that what does it mean? It doesn't mean you can go after the Shechina, because Hashem lekecha eish oichlahu. Elahalech acher midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mahu malbish harumim d'chsev vayas Hashem alekim l'adam lishtay k'seinisar v'abishim afato helveish harum HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then it goes to Bikar Cholim, the same thing. Just HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mavakar choila. So that's the way you're medami yourself to Tzelem Alekim through, that you should do that mitzvah. And then it comes to Kfuras Mesim, it's all in the same mahalach. That's the most that you're supposed to do. Pu'ulos. Over here it's pu'ulos. If you look in the Gemara, he says in Shabbos, So the Gemara in Shabbos, unbelievable Gemara. The Gemara says by Abba Shaul, when the Gemara goes to the dinim of Zekela and Veira, snow b'mitzvahs, have a tzitzah snow, deer no, all those things. Abba Shaul says a new word. He says, Abba Shaul, what do you learn out from Zekeli and Veyu? Havi doime loy. So Rashi says, what's the word anveyu? What's the word anveyu? Right? V'loshan anveyu ani v'hu. Ani v'akadosh baruch hu. What does that mean? Esa atzmi kamoisai l'davik b'drachas. He split the word anveyu, ani v'hu. That's the word anveyu. So l'chayr frek the Ristik Blaze and says, what do you see? You have two psukim over here. There's two psukim. One pasuk is, so why do you need two psukim? It's all one thing. Same thing in the Torah again. You keep seeing the same thing over and over and over. So l'chayr, what's the vart? The vart is, he says that there's two inyanim tak over, and I think that's after he has the kasha. There I saw Lashon the Ram, like I said, pu'ulois and midas hachashuvos. He says a person, avada, if he has, not everybody, like some people beteva, they have rachmanos of people. Some people beteva, they do chesed, but some people are not beteva to do chesed. It's harder for them to do chesed. Maybe their tzad of teva is a little bit shver, achzorius a little bit, let's say, right, or whatever the case may be. Afa Pikain, the din of the Gemara is teaching us over there by in Saita is b'kovish yetzer Afa Pikain, do the ma'asim anyway. Keep doing the ma'asim timing. Keep doing the ma'asim timing. It's hard for you. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And the other tzad is though, but that's not enough. He says. Avadi did that, but without this still in your teva, this inyan of that's shver for you. That's what the Gemara is telling you in Shabbos. You should be kamoihu ani v'hu. That's not enough. The shleimus of a person is that he also has to be mahapik his teva. That's the avodah, right? It's hard to break a midah. We know that, right? And the Baal Musar always says it's easy to finish shas than to break one bad midah. So it's avodah. It's a big avodah. Well, that is the avodah of the Gemara teaching us in Shabbos. They also have to do that avodah. That there's two dinim, and that's l'chayre. That's the whole din of alachta b'deracha that we see in the Torah. It's mamish. Avodah. I was listening to Rav Matur Shir on Talmud Devorah this week. That was hiring me to do this. And I said, "Wow!" Then I found it in this week's parsha. So I said, "Wow! It was bashert." So what's the vort? When he brings down the Talmud Devorah brings this whole inyan. He says there's a Nefesh HaChaim's mahalach, there's the Ramchal's mahalach, but the Talmud Devorah's mahalach is very stark that these two nekudas, that's not just the pu'ulois, but it has to, the midos also have to guide your pu'ulois. That's what it means. They have to the midos of a person. That's what the pool is supposed to come out from. And he brings down that you could see the Torah Devorah says that you could find people that their tzura attack is Tzelem Alikim, but they said if they're pu'ulos and maybe even take the pu'ulos, but if the midas inside don't boy ois the pu'ulos veg, they're being mechazev the Tzelem Alikim. He says that's what Rav says. You be mechazev it, and he says the yoimru olav that he's a kaiser. That's the Lashon Torah. So he says that's called Chil Hashem. That's what he said. I heard it that's what he said. I heard it on the tape. He says that's called Chil Hashem. You could look like it, but if it's takanish oiskabed innovate inside of you, innovating, that's called Chil Hashem. So this is the whole thing we see over here in this week's parsha. That one, and now we have it's a mitzvah saying in the Torah. The midos of a person have to be worked on. It's a mitzvah say like any other mitzvah say. It's not stam extra thing. Shkoyach. Oh, yeah.